Alright, after watching Game of Thrones Season 7, it's kinda hard for us who like Game of Thrones to wait for Season 8, considering that there are no books and nothing to properly scratch that Game of Thrones itch that we all have after the season ends. I've decided to make a video that will compile all the best Game of Thrones video games and mods for popular video games so that we can enjoy Game of Thrones in a different way. Besides this list that I am about to do, there are more games and more mods for popular games, but none of them have the same impact as the ones in this video. The mods in this video can almost be described as a standalone Game of Thrones game. That's how good they are in implementing Game of Thrones world into their own. So this was my goal, not just have a reskin for Game of Thrones or have a, like in Skyrim, Game of Thrones companions, nothing so superficial. I wanted to give you guys a look into these mods that have true Game of Thrones depth to them and that it feels really great to play. Let's start first with two of the best Game of Thrones games that are currently in the market. These are no mods, these are true games. First one is Game of Thrones Adventure from TELLTALE Games. It's a typical TELLTALE game with lots of choices. In it you are controlling a character from House Forrester, which is a minor house from Game of Thrones series, and they are sworn to Starks. The game's events coincide with Season 4 of Game of Thrones TV series, and here you will be able to truly immerse yourself into backstabbing Game of Thrones world with all the diplomacy and all the little things that make Game of Thrones such a great thing to watch. The other game that I'm mentioning in the list is called Game of Thrones. It's from 2012. It's made by CYANIDE Studios. They also developed a game called Game of Thrones Genesis, which is from 2011 if I'm not mistaken, but that one is even worse than the one that I'm showing you right now in the video. This action RPG has a really good storyline, which is really important for Game of Thrones games. Unfortunately, the gameplay is just a reskin of Orcs and Men, also a game from CYANIDE Studios. It didn't particularly do very well, this game, mainly because it got boring quickly. The game is unpolished in most situations, combat becomes boring, and the only thing that will keep you going is a good storyline, if you can endure long hours of gameplay that you won't particularly like. Now we need to go into mods because there aren't any Game of Thrones games remaining to mention except the Genesis one that I already mentioned. The first that we're going to cover in the video is Age of Empires 2 mode. There are a couple of them that will overhaul your game in complete Game of Thrones experience. First and foremost, I need to mention Diplomacy Overhaul mode that drastically changes the game. The game then shifts away from combat into politics and backstabbing, which is the true Game of Thrones experience. If you want more traditional Age of Empires 2 experience with traditional combat and everything else that goes with the game, you might be interested then in War of the Five Kings mod. This one is more combat oriented. Either way, if you like Age of Empires 2 game, and you should like it because it's one of the best real-time strategy games to this day, You will love these mods that make Age of Empires a Game of Thrones game. Civilization games always had one of the best bases for Game of Thrones mods, and one of these mods, called Mod of Ice and Fire for Civilization 5, is considered to this date as best Civilization Game of Thrones mode. With all the options that Civilization games give you, you're gonna have a lot of fun playing this mod and immersing yourself in Game of Thrones experience. Total War series is more for the people that want complete combat experience and controlling biggest possible armies that they can in a very tactical and strategy-like way. Two of the most popular Game of Thrones mods are Westeros Total War Age of Petty Kings for the game called Medieval 2 Total War Kingdoms, and the next one, which you are seeing in this video right now, is for ATILLA Total War, and it's called 7 Kingdoms Total War mod. This one might be a bit closer to us all because you can replace some scenarios like Battle of the Bastards, and more specific battles will come in future, maybe they already are there. While the mod for Medieval 2 Total War Kingdoms is before the age of Aegon the Conqueror, so it might be not that familiar like the one for ATILLA Total War. Nonetheless, both of these mods are a fine representative of what our beautiful modders can do when they set their minds to it. Mount & Blade series also has a very good basis for Game of Thrones adaptations. Best mod for Mount & Blade Warband is called the Clash of Kings mod, and it puts you in the role of a peasant. You're trying to become a great man, and to do so you need to join one of the Westerosi armies. It's up to you what you wanna do, how you wanna do it. There are lots of options, and diplomacy has been updated as well in this mod, so it's definitely time to try this mod if you like Game of Thrones. There is also a second mod that is very good but not as good as the Clash of Kings, and it's called the World of Ice and Fire mod for the same game. The best Game of Thrones experience in any video game is from Crusader Kings 2. Mod is called A Game of Thrones, and it breaks from the normal Crusader Kings 2 gameplay with the goal of getting your king on the Iron Throne. In-game events of Crusader Kings 2 have been adapted to fit the lore of A Song of Ice and Fire books, so it is in the end an unbelievably good Game of Thrones experience, with all the diplomacy and all the things that are present in Crusader Kings 2. If you want the ultimate experience, this is the mod to play. There is also a mod called War of the Usurper. It's for the game Crusader Kings 1, and it's almost the same thing, your choice what you want to play. Crusader Kings 2 offers more scenarios, and every Game of Thrones fan should try this mod and this game. Last two mods that I'm going to mention are for Minecraft and Skyrim. For Minecraft, it's obvious that there is a Game of Thrones mod. After all, it's the game perfect for modders. So I will now talk about the Skyrim one. Skyrim one unfortunately hasn't been released yet. It's been in work for some time now, and it looks quite good. I really hope the author of that mod will finish that sometime in the near future. So far, he or they redesigned castles, locations, armors, outfits, and you can choose whether you want to side with Lannisters or Stark for Battle for the Throne. Let's hope that it will get finished soon, and so that we might be able to play it, because it looks wonderful. So this is the list. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. There's a disclaimer in the description because I've used other people's videos to make this one. If there's a problem, please contact me. Don't issue any kind of copyright strikes or I don't know what. I will remove and re-upload the video if you have problem with it. Thank you all for watching and see you soon.